green.
Every She-Hulk villain. It's not every day that you meet a 30-something lawyer who is also a superpowered hulking green beast, but that is exactly the case for She-Hulk, a Marvel hero created by none other than the legendary Stan Lee himself. She has a significant presence in the Marvel comic books, and now she's making her way to the small screen playing the titular role in the Disney Plus series She-Hulk Attorney at Law. We already know that in this series she will be facing off against one of her most terrible foes, Titania. But there are many others that may make an appearance as well. So this video is all about the various She-Hulk villains that the gigantic green hero has crossed paths with during her time in the Marvel Universe. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
You think you're special? You're animal control, honey. Just taxing around monsters.
Titania. We already know that Titania, played by actress Jamila Jamil, is going to be She-Hulk's arch-nemesis in the new series. But who is she? Titania was prematurely born in Denver, Colorado as Mary McFerrin, to a family that was largely unwilling to support her. She was born without any superhuman abilities or powers to her name. In fact, she was actually teased and bullied while she was growing up due to her short stature and a rather scrawny figure, often being ridiculed by her peers when she was a teenager. She was nicknamed Skeeter by her bullies, who likened her to a mosquito. Growing up lonely and being an outcast, she was drawn to superheroes and spent most of her time surrounded by comic books and imagining herself as being one of the heroes she loved and looked up to. It was only when Dr. Doom approached McFerrin and her closest friend Marsha Rosenberg during the Secret Wars and offered to turn them into superpowered femme fatales that she gained her meta-human powers and became Titania. The need for vengeance against those who made fun of Mary McFerrin in her youth was her main driving force, especially as her personality had changed as the result of gaining superpowers. She-Hulk was the object of McFerrin's ferocious wrath as Titania since she had beaten her in their previous encounter during Secret Wars. Since that conflict, Titania has targeted She-Hulk more frequently than any other adversaries out of anger. As a result, Titania is regarded as She-Hulk's fiercest foe and arch-nemesis. Dr. Doom gave Mary McFerrin amazing powers using alien technology. Mary underwent a dramatic physical change, gaining at least 1.5 feet in height and the titanic strength of a mythological giant. After she had undergone her physical transformation, she chose the name Titania to go with her new look. Titania, having been exposed to alien technology, developed certain abilities in addition to her changed stature. She developed extraordinary strength of superhuman proportions, toughness, and endurance as well. Even the most resilient combatants, including She-Hulk, Thor, and The Thing, have a tough time and are quite the match for her might. Her love interest is also interestingly another She-Hulk villain known as the Absorbing Man. Behemoth. If there is any She-Hulk villain that even came close to rivaling the arch-nemesis status of Titania, it is Behemoth. Now, Behemoth the Man-Elephant has an interesting backstory. This beast was actually a man named Ellsworth Haller, the creator and proprietor of Haller Hydraulics, and was billed as the hydraulics industry's leader. He created a strong suit that would let people explore dangerous terrain using it. He then gave Sheriff Morris Walters the opportunity to demonstrate its value by apprehending She-Hulk when she was a fugitive, because he thought that the media attention resulting from the altercation would support the lawsuit. However, this plan ended up backfiring on him as She-Hulk took him down with surprising ease. He was put out of business by none other than Tony Stark himself when it was revealed that he was selling parts to unlicensed armor contractors. However, this would lead to him actually becoming a man-elephant and not just a man wearing a bionic elephant suit. After his downward spiral, he traveled to Timbuktu, where he was given a shard of a gem that supposedly belonged to the Hindu elephant-headed god named Ganesh. When he touched the Sitorak gem, he was transformed into the behemoth that we now know, a completely new and strong being. With his newfound powers, he set out to take revenge on Tony Stark and She-Hulk because he held them responsible for his downfall. As far as his powers go, he gained superhuman strength as a result of his newly acquired man-elephant physiology. He also became highly resistant to injury due to his new and improved tough skin. His physiology also made him extremely menacing in appearance. How would you feel about a gigantic man-elephant charging at you? Yeah, that's exactly what I thought. However, he doesn't always appear in his man-elephant form, and he is able to change between his human and hybrid form at will. Abominatrix. Another green-skinned villain, the Abominatrix, is actually quite similar to She-Hulk. She was originally a woman named Florence Sharple, and she worked at Keaton Savings and Loans Company. During her time there, Jasper Keaton opened a new division in the company that would focus on genetic research. It was after the creation of this new division that Florence volunteered to be one of the willing test subjects that they needed. The experiment that she took part in revolved around using gamma radiation to control premenstrual syndrome in hopes of curing it. However, things went horribly wrong, and the result of the experiment was the Abominatrix. Keaton then recruited Abominatrix to abduct Louise Mason in order to discover the whereabouts of a nuclear bomb called Rosebud. Keaton desired Rosebud in order to force Congress to hand over control of the savings and loans to him. Mason, on the other hand, had no idea where Rosebud was. However, this is what would lead to Abominatrix's confrontation with She-Hulk. While attempting to release Mason, She-Hulk battled Abominatrix. Mason's daughter, the Phantom Blonde, inadvertently disclosed the bomb's position in a statue in front of Rosebud's hotel, the Benchmark. Rosebud's pacemaker was outfitted with a failsafe detonator. Fortunately, She-Hulk fought Abominatrix and threw the rocket into the desert before it detonated. From here onwards, the two women developed a rivalry of sorts, making Abominatrix a She-Hulk villain, albeit not a very prominent one. She gained super strength as a result of her exposure to gamma radiation, and boy does she pack a mean punch. She also became highly resistant to any physical injury and could withstand most physical attacks. She also became extremely good at combat and learned how to channel her physical strength into her attacks. It would definitely not be a pretty sight if you got involved in a brawl with her. Volcana. Remember Titania? Well, Volcana is her best friend. Born Marsha Rosenberg, she had similar troubled kid origins like her best friend Mary McFerrin. Marsha, who was overweight and introverted, led an unremarkable life in Denver, Colorado. She made friends with fellow outsider Mary Skeeter McFerrin, and the two lived by fantasizing about being superheroes. Marsha genuinely believed Mary when she informed her that she was Spider-Woman, a secret she eventually revealed to others, causing a schism between the two. However, when the Secret Wars began, Dr. Doom kidnapped both Marsha and Mary. He offered them enormous power in exchange for their servitude, and they consented. Marsha's body was genetically transformed by extraterrestrial technology to allow her to morph into molten lava, fitting her new codename of Volcana. Volcana was the first to face She-Hulk in the Battle World War. She then fell in love with Molecule Man, another supervillain. Marsha abandoned villainy after the events of the Secret Wars and tried to live a quiet life with the Molecule Man. This was short-lived, as Volcana frequently found herself using her powers to help others, including the Avengers and the Fantastic Four on occasion. She later called it quits with the Molecule Man. Years later, under unclear circumstances, Volcana resumed criminal activity. She reconnected with her ex-best friend Titania and assisted in the battle against She-Hulk for her blue file. Volcana was likely imprisoned after She-Hulk defeated both supervillains. As far as her powers go, they are actually quite unique. Through the genetic mutation, Marsha obtained the power to morph into a plasma form after Dr. Doom genetically mutated her. She has extraordinary endurance and the ability to release targeted bursts of fire while in her plasma form. Volcana later developed a way to convert her body into volcanic rock, boosting her physical strength to superhuman proportions. She discovered she could shift into volcanic ash while testing her abilities even further. Volcana has the ability to morph between the three forms as well as her human form at any time. Ultima. One of She-Hulk's most famous adversaries, Ultima, was a trained assassin and one of the first enemies that She-Hulk ever encountered. Her father was the Word, a cult leader, and she was the apple of his eye. He trained her since she was a child, and using meditation and severe discipline, he taught her how to unlock the superhuman strength that lay within her. However, that is not the end of her story, as her turn to villainy came later. She fell in love with a boy named Randolph, who was also a cult member. However, his parents wanted him back and hired She-Hulk to infiltrate the cult's compound and bring him back. She-Hulk ran into Ultima while attempting the rescue mission for Randolph. When Ultima saw She-Hulk's alter persona Jennifer Walters speaking with Randolph, she grew outraged and attempted to arrest her. Jennifer Walters, on the other hand, quickly transformed into She-Hulk and fled from Ultima. Ultima, distraught about her loss, declined to tell the Word about it for fear of disappointing him. Ultima later attended the Word's trial, and as Jennifer Walters escaped the courtroom and transformed into She-Hulk, Ultima pursued and attacked her. Ultima was able to hold her own for a while before succumbing to defeat. The Word convinced Randolph to assist Ultima in combat, while She-Hulk threatened to squash the girl with a car. Randolph slammed into She-Hulk and snatched the automobile from her grasp, which nearly killed him. However, Ultima leapt in the path, rescuing Randolph but injuring her spine. Ultima was paralyzed and silent until she was taken in by her father, who swore she would never speak again. The Word, on the other hand, quickly abandoned his oaths and utilized his skills to nurse Ultima to full recovery. Ultima assaulted Human Torch and the Thing, but was finally rendered paralyzed after witnessing her father's failure and losing her confidence. In her prime, she was at the peak of human physical ability. She had superhuman strength, speed, and endurance, all of which she had unlocked with sheer perseverance and self-confidence. Silencer. Silencer is another She-Hulk villain. Unlike most of the others that we have discussed so far, this one does not have a clear origin. Her past is unknown and shrouded in mystery. She is a unique villain in that her abilities, persona, and characteristics are all kept on the down low. She dresses like an assassin and is often part of an evil team rather than working on her own. Silencer, a criminal, was shrunken down with PIM particles and sent to jail in the Big House, a miniature prison. In fact, it is not even known what she had done to end up in prison in the first place, especially one that housed quite terrible villains. She met seasoned supervillains like Sandman and Mandrill there. She ended up joining the Mad Thinker in his plan to escape the Big House, and she utilized her skills to keep the villain silent in front of the correctional authorities. The criminals then employed the PIM particles to shrink even smaller, allowing them to escape by clinging to the unaware She-Hulk's body. Her abilities allowed the inmates to bypass the guards without being noticed. She later joined the fight against She-Hulk, but was likely defeated alongside the other villains. Thus, her power is resonated in the name she goes by, Silencer. She can manipulate and distort sound according to her own will. It is largely seen that she can shroud sound completely, allowing her to pull off heists and escape with ease. Her power is such that she is a great team member and would probably fare quite well when it comes to crimes like stealing because of her ability to make it seem like everything is silent when it is not. A curious villain indeed. Nick Trask. Nick, or Nicholas Trask, does not have an origin story per se. He was a gangster and was quite heavily involved in criminal activities, being the leader of a criminal outfit in Los Angeles. He was also a long-standing foe of Sheriff Morris Walters. In fact, he was responsible for the death of Morris's wife, Elaine. He had killed her in cold blood. Following multiple conflicts with Morris, Trask set his sight on Morris's daughter, Jennifer, especially when she was preparing to help his opponent, Lou Monkton. He sent his henchmen to shoot Jennifer outside her house, and they succeeded in apprehending and wounding her. However, her life was saved by a blood transfusion thanks to her cousin Bruce Banner's intervention. But unbeknownst to Trask, she soon became the beast known as She-Hulk. Thus, it can be said that Nick Trask was the reason She-Hulk even exists today. The man would truly understand the meaning of the phrase, "You reap what you sow." Trask began focusing on new ideas after numerous failed assassination attempts on Jennifer Walters, including one that caused the death of her best friend Jill Stevens. He used the robot She-Droid to frame She-Hulk for the death of trucker Jake Fox, and subsequently developed the Silver Serpent, a mechanical serpent that he controlled to siphon oil from Roxxon. This strategy resulted in Trask's ultimate fight with She-Hulk, who beat the Silver Serpent and forced it to malfunction, sending Trask writhing deep into the Earth's core and probably to his death. Nicholas Trask was nothing special in terms of superhuman or metahuman abilities. He was a regular guy like you and me. However, while Nick Trask lacked supernatural abilities, he was a proficient marksman. He also controlled the Silver Serpent, a mechanical serpent that he built that was capable of burrowing underground and siphoning liquids. Trask was also a talented snake handler, having used a number of pet snakes, including a cobra, for their venom. Apart from these unique abilities, he was a shrewd criminal, and people who worked for him feared and obeyed him. Ruby Thursday. Ruby Thursday is one of the more obscure villains that She-Hulk has ever come across. She was part of the Headmen, a team of Defender villains who often faced off against She-Hulk. Thursday Rubenstein was once a talented scientist who was despised by society for devising a novel medical method that involved replacing a human's head with an organic computer composed of pliable plastic. She was tired of the emphasis on physical looks and chose the minimalism of a ruby head instead. Her first goal was to successfully execute the operation on herself, which she carried out without any problems. She then decided to join the Headmen, an organization of cosmic geniuses, and fought the Defenders multiple times. Ruby Thursday initially came across She-Hulk when she was taken by the Headmen in order for Shandu to use her body for his own. Spider-Man overcame her in fight. Ruby was later embroiled in a car chase with Hellcat. She-Hulk stepped in, but instead of assaulting the villain, she decided to pursue Hellcat, an unlicensed superhero following the events of Civil War. Ruby Thursday can shapeshift her head into any shape she wants, whether it's another human or an attacking weapon like a sword. She had been spotted transforming into a variety of forms, including a massive pair of lips, a shield, and a pair of wings. She can also grow many appendages, such as arms or tentacles, from her head. There are various defensive weapons inside her head, such as stingers and explosive charges. Ruby Thursday can expel her head from her body willfully and float around, or she can simply detonate her head, knocking out everyone in her proximity to comatose. Ruby cannot be murdered because of her computer mind. Thursday's organic craniocomputer can evaluate her opponent's combat methods, predict their future movements, and devise counter moves to neutralize them. However, she is significantly less effective than Midnighter's combat computer. It has also been discovered that Ruby Thursday's current body is entirely made of biological circuitry, and she is capable of rapidly regenerating her body. She is definitely a unique villain and stands out from the crowd with the giant red ball she has in place of her head. Grappler. Another unique villain, the Grappler grew up in the ghetto and endured the rough streets by grappling any bully to the dirt irrespective of their size. As he grew older, he desired to advance in life and sought out Hugh Howard, the wealthiest man in the West. He contacted Mr. Howard as he exited his Las Vegas casino complex, pleading for the secret to his success. As his men pulled him away and bashed him down, Mr. Howard shouted one crucial word: leverage. It was the best counsel he had ever received, and he interpreted it literally. By studying martial arts, he acquired the technique of leverage and started to amass a big sum of money by dominating championship matches all around the world. He began to research finances and anything related to the principle of leverage. He created the Grappler costume and a specially adapted titanium steel rod. When the Grappler used his titanium rod to overturn an armored car in order to grab some gold, he triggered a traffic jam. And this was when he encountered Jennifer Walters, who was stuck in traffic at the time. She turned into the She-Hulk and challenged the Grappler. The Grappler attempted to persuade the She-Hulk to become his partner so that the two of them might become wealthy. She-Hulk was enticed, but she chose to defeat the Grappler. After a brief skirmish, She-Hulk arrested the Grappler as he attempted to flee on his jet. She-Hulk wrapped the Grappler in his own staff and handed him over to the cops. Grappler also invaded a courtroom and kidnapped She-Hulk's father, Morris Walters, on other occasion. She-Hulk then defeated the Grappler once more and imprisoned him. The Grappler is an immensely skilled wrestler and martial artist. He employs a variety of tools, including a computer pack that quickly analyzes and sends to him the precise location and appropriate amount of leverage required in any scenario. He also has a titanium steel rod that has been carefully adapted to topple and attack his adversaries. His rod may also discharge a tightly wrapped band of steel coils designed to strangle whomever he wants instantly. Taking all of this into consideration, he is quite the tricky villain to deal with, but nothing She-Hulk can't make quick work of, evidently. Captain Rectitude. Bob Jones IV was a savings and loan employee at Jasper Keaton's organization. He was genetically transformed, along with the Abominatrix, to defend and serve Jasper Keaton as his personal bodyguard. He was granted superhuman strength, enough to fight She-Hulk hand-to-hand, and chose to call himself Captain Rectitude. He saw himself as a crusader who would cleanse the world of pornography and smut, rather than being just a common bodyguard. In the comics, the American Purity Foundation took Bob Jones and transformed him into Captain Rectitude. After they altered him, he gained superpowers, but he began to speak and act strangely. She-Hulk interrupted a Foundation meeting in Vegas when she and Abominatrix came through a ceiling in a struggle to save a girl's life. Captain Rectitude wanted to participate in the conflict, but they advised him to wait and see who won. Jasper Keaton stated that he worked for Keaton after She-Hulk won the fight. In his first interaction with She-Hulk, he didn't respond when she asked where a girl named Louise was being detained. As a result, she left him alone. However, Captain Rectitude crossed paths with She-Hulk once more. She was accompanied by the new Blonde Phantom at the time, and they noticed Captain Rectitude tying up some men. Blonde Phantom revealed the location of a bomb to him, which led to a fight between them. She-Hulk fought Captain Rectitude and gained the upper hand. However, Abominatrix entered and knocked her unconscious before she could finish him off. Captain Rectitude then proceeded to detonate the explosives. That's when She-Hulk appeared once again and defeated them. She was able to throw the bomb far away so that the blast would not hurt anybody. The two villains are now imprisoned in the negative zone. He was extremely strong, having superhuman strength, endurance, and power fit for a hero. He also had immense stamina and speed. However, his special ability was the destructive heart-shaped energy blasts that he could shoot out of his chest. A true crusader for love. Unum. Unum is one of the more complex and dangerous villains because she is not into gold, jewels, money, or heists, or any kind of criminal activity really. Her sole mission is to kill all the Marvel superheroes, starting with the female ones. Why the women first, you ask? Beats me. Ladies first, I guess. Her origin story is actually quite complex. Evil entities like Dormammu have tormented their subordinates for a long time, and upon hearing their cries of rage and betrayal due to being treated like they were nothing by the people they worked for and looked up to, another entity called Enmity decided to listen. Enmity heard their cries for help and decided to extend her hand. She took all these helpless beings and merged them all together to create one entity, Unum. Giving them this strong physical form allowed them to manifest their hatred for all things, and Unum started her vendetta. It is unknown exactly which entities were joined together to create her, but safe to say they were all evil. Unum decided to hunt down all female superheroes and eliminate them, and that is how she came into conflict with She-Hulk. She made the Green Hero one of her targets. Before they could be destroyed by an energy blast thrown by Unum's hand, She-Hulk and her partner Jacinda were teleported away by an unidentified ally. She-Hulk and Jacinda soon realized they weren't the only ones being kidnapped. She-Hulk was accompanied by the Invisible Woman, Thundra, Storm, Valkyrie, and the other Lady Liberators. Laia, the Laser Fist, and the female Guardians of the Galaxy were waiting for Jacinda when she was taken to that location. Although neither group of female warriors knew why they had been brought together, it became evident very quickly that they were being imprisoned against their consent. when Unum challenged their savior, the Collector, because she believed he was standing in the way of her prey. Both groups of women eventually managed to escape their safe havens. Because the two groups of heroes were trampling over each other, Unum won the fight that broke out between all the women present. However, in the end, She-Hulk learned the truth about Unum and persuaded her that enmity was merely making fun of her suffering. Unum turned against her master and used her staff to stab enmity. Unum was dealt with by enmity, perhaps cruelly, but it is unknown if Unum survived the conflict. The Collector sent all the women back to their different locations in the cosmos after Unum had vanished. Black Hole. Another obscure villain group member, Black Hole's origin story is quite an interesting one. Morton Kribbe was playing handball in Brooklyn when a little piece of dwarf star stuff dropped from space and lodged itself in his breastbone. Morton was given a power by this one singularity, which even he finds repulsive. What is this power, you ask? Well, he can open a black hole in the center of his chest, which takes in and compresses matter until Morton decides it is appropriate to seal it, thanks to the dense dwarf star matter. Additionally, a singularity field is produced which renders superhuman abilities useless. He joined the Band of the Bland led by Dr. Angst and adopted the moniker Black Hole. Angst gave the black hole a boost in power, enabling it to take in more substantial and potent items. When Howard, the Duck's lover Beverly Switzler, forced the black hole to suck himself in, his attempt to suck in the Hulk was unsuccessful. He eventually managed to escape and then he was hauled to jail. Black Hole quit the Band of the Bland after being imprisoned in order to perform at a circus, but he was unable to draw an audience. Dr. Angst, who was plotting to overthrow reality and construct his own world, contacted him once more. He was able to cosmic squish all the universes together. She-Hulk, on the other hand, foiled his plan and sucked the errant universes into the black hole. The Critic, a division of the Watchers, imprisoned Black Hole as it grew large. The Black Hole is one of the Band of the Bland's most active members due to his many cameo appearances in Marvel Comics following his defeat by the She-Hulk in the Cosmic Squish. Thus, his main power, as his name suggests, was creating a massive black hole in the middle of his chest. A black hole, as we know, is strong enough to suck in planets, stars, and whole galaxies, so this is definitely a formidable power. Xemnu. Xemnu is not solely a She-Hulk villain, but he has gone up against her on multiple occasions. Interestingly, Jack Kirby invented Xemnu, who made his comic book debut in issue 62 of Journey into Mystery. He was referred to as the Hulk in his early appearances. This was before the creation of the modern Green Hulk. His name was then changed to Xemnu in order to clear up any confusion. Intergalactic criminal Xemnu had been held captive on a prison planet until he slipped past security and commandeered a supply ship. After his spacecraft ran out of fuel and crashed, Xemnu came to Earth. A man named Joe Harper, an electrician, found his lifeless body. When he regained consciousness, Xemnu utilized telepathy to take control of Harper and then every other human on Earth, ordering them to construct a brand new spacecraft so he could travel back to his home planet. Harper was freed from Xemnu's telepathic control as he left the ship, and he damaged the spacecraft's electrical system, electrocuting him and putting him into a coma-like state. As the ship sailed away, Xemnu's influence on the inhabitants of Earth waned, and they lost all recollection of him. Now, fights between Xemnu and the Incredible Hulk and his cousin the She-Hulk have a lengthy history. The creature repeatedly engaged them in combat, but he was always routed and sent packing. Usually he managed to escape via a spaceship or slip out amid the chaos that followed. In addition to having Hulk-level size and strength, Xemnu also possesses the power of mass hypnosis, telepathy, and telekinesis, which he has utilized repeatedly to rule the globe for his own wicked purposes. More untapped abilities that Xemnu possesses include the ability to molecularly control his body, the ability to take over other people's bodies and transform them into himself, and the ability to transform humans into hybrid zombies by eating them for food. Additionally, Xemnu is highly skilled with alien technology, creating spacecraft out of elements from Earth, genetically cloning extinct creatures, and creating conversion tools that transform individuals into members of his own civilization. Clockwise. Clockwise is another bizarre villain, an ordinary human with time travel powers and abilities. He can travel back and forth in time by using the retroactive canon and further using it to erase heroes from existence. He has quite the peculiar look, sporting a mechanical suit that resembles a rickety metal grandfather clock. A time-traveling supervillain from Earth 6023 universe named Clockwise. He was outfitted with a special suit. He infiltrated the Time Variance Authority while She-Hulk was being tried there, and attempted to use the retroactive canon to wipe out many heroes while he was there. He is quite an obscure villain, and not much is known about him apart from this. However, time travel and having the ability to completely wipe out heroes from existence is definitely concerning for all our heroes. However, the time for punishment comes for every villain, and Clockwise also got caught and is now serving time in the time cells for playing around with the fabric of time and causing rifts.
Ever asked me how I escaped?
No, please, Creel.
Absorbing Man. This villain is Titania's husband and partner in crime. A made-up character named Absorbing Man can be found in American comic books produced by Marvel Comics. He was created by writer Stan Lee and writer-artist Jack Kirby and made his debut in Journey into Mystery number 114, cover dated March 1965. Over the years, he has participated in a number of Marvel Comics crossovers, including the first Secret Wars and Fear itself. Creel has been presented as both a supervillain for a long time and an anti-hero, aligning himself with figures like Black Bolt and Alpha Flight. Before becoming Absorbing Man, he was a professional boxer named Carl Creel, and he famously competed against Daredevil's father in a match, losing. He then drank a potion from Loki that caused him to take in the qualities of anything he came into contact with. He eventually mastered the ability to choose which drug to consume and even to combine the qualities of several substances at once. She-Hulk understood, though, that he could only decide not to absorb a substance if it was scarce. If there is too much material around him, he can't ignore it, which turns out to be a major flaw. He is one of the fiercest and the most terrifying She-Hulk villains because he has limitless potential for using such incredible power. If he weren't such a moron, he might easily be the most potent figure in the entire Marvel Universe.
Idiot monster. I can absorb anything.
The villains Titania and Creel had a romantic relationship throughout the Secret Wars plot, and they remained connected for decades after. Creel acquires a Divine Asgardian hammer during the Fear itself plot, giving him enhanced abilities and transforming him into Greathoth, Breaker of Wills. The Absorbing Man, who made his comic book debut in the Silver Age, has appeared in more than 4 decades of Marvel continuity and other Marvel-sponsored media, including animated television programs, video games, and items like trading cards. The character has been portrayed by Brian Patrick Wade in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, TV series Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., as well as various animated television programs and video games. Mankiller. Mankiller made his debut in Marvel Team-Up Volume 1 Number 8, written by Jerry Conway and Jim Mooney. Olympic skier and outspoken feminist Katrina Louisa Van Horn is who would go on to become Mankiller. Anti-women's liberation skier Carl Lubbings and Van Horn got into a heated debate on the slopes after getting into a confrontation regarding some feminist issue. Olympic caliber skier Katrina was cut off by Lubbings, and the two skiers both fell off the mountain. Katrina was deformed and suffered terrible injuries as a result of the accident. But what resulted from that incident was a villain who was given the name Mankiller, along with being fitted with a powered exoskeleton. However, she no longer wears the exoskeleton, therefore it is likely that she has gained strength in some other way. She has worked as an agent for Hydra and as a freelancer. She started hating all men intensely after her accident, and that is when she took up the moniker and embarked on her vendetta. Her character is often seen to be a caricature of extreme feminists. Mankiller is not a She-Hulk villain originally, but like a few others on this list, has had a fair number of altercation with Hulk's female cousin. After her streak as a solo villain in the Marvel Universe, where she was defeated by She-Hulk time and time again, she joined what is known to be Marvel's version of DC's Suicide Squad, the Thunderbolts. However, she was killed during the Secret Empire storyline by Kobik, the physical manifestation of a cosmic cube. While the exact source of her power and the extent of the same is unclear, what we do know is that she has robotic implants in place of or combined with her bones and nerves. These bionic enhancements are what gives her her superhuman abilities. Her abilities include strong athleticism and the capacity to throw knives hundreds of meters, along with superhuman strength, durability, and stamina. At some point, she also received PIM particles, which increased her power in proportion to her physical size, making her an Amazonian man-killer. Nogor. Nogor is one of the most powerful beings on this list. He is also a celestial being, unlike many others on this list who started off as humans and developed superpowers. Nogor served as the Skrull god's talisman, the Talisman. He had to be there to assure the gods would support the Skrulls' activities and bless them in all their endeavors. In fact, his faith in them was so deep that he offered his eyes as a sacrifice. Nogor debuted as Longshot during the Skrull invasion of Earth and started traveling with the mutant Darwin under the ruse that they were searching for Charles Xavier. He was identified as a Skrull once She-Hulk and Jacinda arrived, and the two of them, along with X-Factor, worked together to defeat him. Following the altercation, Jen and Jacinda brought Nogor with them with the intention of using him to try to halt the Skrulls. Unexpectedly, Jacinda's father, Kl'rt, the original Super Skrull, attacked them in an effort to murder her after she betrayed him. Nogor broke loose during the subsequent fight between Jen and Kl'rt and assaulted Jacinda as well, hoping to take away the side thorax gem from her, which gave her the ability to resurrect herself. The Super Skrull killed his daughter after Jen was briefly rendered blind by Kl'rt, but after hearing She-Hulk speak about his son and the pain of his death, he made the decision to stop Nogor from taking the gem out of Jacinda and left her with Jen so she could live again. He was endowed with the ability to enhance beliefs as well as the Skrull's shape-shifting talent. The more Nogor's religious fervor and belief, the more powerful he becomes. He can fly and has superhuman strength. Additionally, he is now able to fire conviction energy blasts, which previously was the ability to fire golden energy blasts. An adversary might likewise be kept afloat with his energy. Nogor also had extrasensory perception, which allowed him to observe his surroundings despite the fact that his original form had no eyes. Nogor's mind later became undistinguishable from Longshot's owing to the infiltration ritual, making it difficult for a telepath to deduce his actual identity from his thoughts. However, he also had a fatal flaw. Jacinda thought that if someone could have more commitment in their beliefs than Nogor, they would be able to overcome him. Adrenazon. In comparison to almost all the other villains on this list, Adrenazon is probably the least known among all of them. In fact, this villain has never appeared in any She-Hulk comic at all. You're probably wondering what on earth is she doing on this list? If that is the case, well, it turns out that she battled the Jade Giantess in the series Marvel Comic Presents issues number 123 to 126. Before turning into the villain known as Adrenazon, this woman was actually just a regular person named Adrian Lynn. Her connection with She-Hulk was originally via her husband. Her husband was a criminal and had been sent to jail by none other than She-Hulk when she apprehended him. She harbored ill feelings for the superhero, but unfortunately, a fatal automobile accident left Adrian Lynn permanently disabled. But little did she know that this would result in a complete transformation for her. She tried an experimental adrenal gland transplant in a last-ditch effort to regain the use of her legs and hoped that the advancement in science and medicine would be enough to help her. The medication was effective, but she yearned for more strength and kept taking it until she developed superhuman strength. It's never a good idea to self-medicate, people. She took this as a blessing and took on the moniker of Adrenazon. She then assumed the identity of She-Hulk and began framing her for crimes in order to exact revenge on her for locking her husband up. However, during this time, she had a mental breakdown brought on by the serum, which led her to start thinking she was the sensational She-Hulk. She experienced a flashback before the serum overpowered her and caused her to faint. She prevented guards from the tombs from stun-locking the sensational She-Hulk. She later accepted her husband's culpability and the tragedy of his death once the serum had gone off. She-Hulk joined her at his final resting place. As far as her powers go, she possessed extraordinary strength, speed, durability, and stamina while she was Adrenazon. These powers were all present in sufficient amounts for her to engage in conflict with She-Hulk, with the two of them being quite equally matched. She was left mentally unbalanced by the treatments though. She is confined to a wheelchair and paralyzed from the waist in her regular human state. Thundra. Last but not the least, we have Thundra, and this villain, rather anti-hero, has an elaborate history, so stay with me here. In an alternate history, a global chemical and biological warfare broke out during the end of the 20th century, leading to the sterilization of 95% of Earth's female population. The fertile 5% took control of politics and started a systematic campaign of tyranny against men who were said to have almost been wiped out. By the early 23rd century, laboratory birthing had completely replaced natural childbirth, and males were solely produced as laborers, performers, and breeding material. Exterminating wandering bands of rebellious free men and thwarting intrusions from other countries and powers were the main priorities of the United Sisterhood Republic, one of the dominant nations of the new globe. Thundra was born in a government-run facility where fetuses are carried to term in artificial wombs called the Central Birthing Center of Greater Milwaukee. Thundra, who was genetically enhanced for physical prowess and stamina, was enrolled in a military academy at the age of 8. She had earned a reputation as the Midwestern Republic's best warrior by the time she was 18 and rose to the rank of officer in the militia. She led attacks on the army of the Central American Empire as well as wandering bands of outlaws. Russia encountered an invasion by soldiers from another reality, known as Machos, in the middle of Thundra's military career. After using their interdimensional travel technology to free the males on Thundra's Earth, where they had used it to overthrow their female oppressors aeons earlier, the men from this parallel Earth traveled there. Thundra seized their spatial machinery with the intention of retaliating against the Machos men and attacking their world. But because of a glitch, she was transported to the 20th century. After settling in, she made the decision to weaken the strongest human being alive on Earth in order to, in her opinion, prevent the creation of the planet of Machos. Earth is where she came into contact with the Marvel superheroes. Although Thundra isn't your typical supervillain, she is undoubtedly one of the strongest personalities and foes She-Hulk has ever met. She may not be as strong, but she has incredible fighting ability as she repeatedly demonstrated. She typically works with She-Hulk as an ally and partner, but the two have occasionally fought. Thundra has had significant training in the military disciplines of her century, as well as boxing and wrestling. She has extensive broadsword experience. Thundra has participated in numerous anti-renegade missions and is a skilled combatant. Due to the nearly complete abolition of firearms in her own period, she had little experience with them. Thundra is endowed with several genetically engineered abilities, including superhuman strength. She has the physical strength to lift about 60 tons. Additionally, she has leg strength that allows her to jump 45 feet. The physique of Thundra is way more injury resistant than a typical human's. Because of her thick skin, she has a Mohs hardness of 7.5, which makes her resistant to the penetration of bullets with small calibers. 32 miles per hour is the top speed at which Thundra can move. Additionally, she has a 50-minute window during which she can push herself to her maximum capacity before the buildup of fatigue poisons in her blood forces her to minimize her activity or take a break. The beauty of all these villains is their uniqueness in power, ability, mannerisms, and appearance. It would be really cool to see them brought to life in live action. While we know for sure that Titania is going to play a major role in the series, some of the others mentioned on this list might also end up being featured. Which one of these villains are you looking forward to seeing in the upcoming Disney Plus Marvel show? Tell us in the comment section below. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.
You think you're special? You're animal control, honey. Just taxing around monsters.